Okay, we are live, June 24th, 2024. Start of another summer just after the solstice, and it looks like the Gemini twins, that's what we're referring to, the two astronauts who are up in the ISS from the Boeing Starliner mission, they're still up there. They're stranded. So that's the current story right now. The astronauts are stranded, but not only that, we've been following the story. And here's a headline: Water everywhere. NASA spacewalk called off for a second time after spacesuit issue arises. And I often bring up the fact, not the opinion, the fact that the spacewalks are performed underwater in their swimming pool, in the neutral buoyancy laboratory, where they practice being in space by floating around in water with the aid of scuba divers who have flippers, because spacesuits don't have flippers. Well, they actually use the same set to perform spacewalks and dockings and others. And you can tell if you look at the light loss, the diffusion of light on these spacewalks on video matches that which is what you would see about 40 feet underwater. And yet the photography allows you to see for millions of miles. You can see space is just clear. You can see the Earth just fine. You snap a photo, but the spacewalks, no, you can see about 30 feet and then it gets pitch black. Why is that? It's because they're underwater. But anyway, NASA puts out the story. U.S. Spacewalk 90 was canceled at the ISS due to a water leak in the service and cooling umbilical unit on NASA astronaut Tracy Dyson's spacesuit. Says here they set their suits to battery power at 8:46 a.m. This was highlighted by Violet. 8:46 a.m. 8:46 is a very 9/11-y number, a psyop-y number, as many of you know. They opened the hatch to the space station's Quest airlock before reporting the issue. NASA has since placed a sponge and snorkel in the suits in case another leak should occur. Again, they're just pretending to be in space. And I'm pointing out something else too, because this is all about leaks. They've had helium leaks messing up their thrusters, spacesuit leaks letting the water in, but the leak theme ties in to last year. As we passed the summer solstice, we had the Titan submersible. And why did it implode? Some kind of a leak. Must have been a leak. Reoccurring theme here, but let's go to the article. Water everywhere, NASA calls off spacewalk. I was just watching, and I'll probably go on and show you this next, but I was watching some footage from the ISS blooper reel, and I don't feel sorry for the people who believe it's real, but at the same time, I don't know. We'll look at it. I mean, it's pitiful, is what I should say. But it's their fault. It's their responsibility. You know, if you're confused about reality because you can't tell real from fake, that's on you. But everybody's confused in the same way, so you'll fit right in. NASA called off the spacewalk because the astronaut said there's water everywhere. So what? They didn't tell her first? She steps out of the ISS and just finds it's water. It always was water. Always has been. You know that meme with the astronaut? Let's see if I can find it. Where one astronaut has a gun to the other astronaut's head. Here we go. So they're looking at the globe, and he says always has been. Now, what does this meme mean? It depends. There's versions of it. My favorite version of it has a flat Earth, so the astronaut's looking back and it's flat. But this is the always has been meme. But I'm just pointing out here that the ISS has always been underwater. Always has been. So somebody didn't tell Tracy. There's water everywhere. They called off the spacewalk to ensure the safety of the astronauts, and they repressurized the airlock. After waiting for the airlock to return to sea level air pressure, the two were assisted. Okay, let's continue here. The two astronauts were safe, and it was heard that a little residual water was located. Now, I want to point out something else. They just had another incident on the ISS where they said the astronauts were in distress. And after the internet reacted, they said it was an accidental airing of a drill. So why should we think this is real? NASA accidentally airs ISS emergency drill for astronauts. Like, this is really bizarre. So they aired this thing that says that they're having an emergency, and afterward they had to reassure the public. It says here, a flight surgeon was playing out a scenario in which she gave the ISS crew advice on how to deal with the commander suffering from compression sickness. Check his pulse one more time. Now, how do you get compression sickness generally? Decompression sickness occurs when rapid pressure reduction during ascent from a dive causes gas previously dissolved in blood or tissues to form bubbles in the blood vessels. Another type of swimming type of related condition or incident. Okay, it goes on to say after they had this alarm, then a bunch of space enthusiasts were talking about it and they ended up saying no, it was just a drill. It wasn't real. It says the ISS crew members were in their sleep at the time, all are healthy. The audio was inadvertently misrouted from an ongoing simulation. It was not a real emergency. Now, what does that mean? But again, they canceled a spacewalk because of water for the second time. Mainly pointing this out because it's a leaky spacesuit. This ties into the leaky suit. This ties into a general theme. And a leak, this has been a reoccurring thing for a few years now. In fact, if you remember in 2019, there was this story where an astronaut accidentally dialed 911 from space. And after this, I started looking at this thinking, okay, this is a clue. This is a clue as to what's to come. Astronaut dials 911 from space. Kind of a butt dial. Wrong number back in, this is not the first time it's happened. Happened in 2012 as well. Accidentally dials 911 from the ISS. We actually have the video here. But
Hey,
but not long after this, I started paying attention to the space station and noting this has got to be some kind of, I don't know, predictive programming. And after that, you had a hole in the ISS that was just mysteriously found in, and they had to plug it with gum or somebody's finger. And I'm not making this up. If you look up ISS had a hole, they plugged it with a finger. Just really quick here. At first, ESA astronaut Alexander Hurst simply plugged the hole with his finger to stop the leak, but of course, it wasn't sufficient as a long-term solution. You think? Instead, they used epoxy and Kapton tape to form a high-strength tape. This is a form of tape that they use in the spacecraft, and they sealed it. So apparently they just plugged it, but later they said it was caused by a drill. So I'm thinking, okay, drill, leak on the ISS, dialing 911, and then I started looking closely, and sure enough, this narrative began unrolling, like this storyline about the ISS in danger. At some point, it's going to be the next 911. And I want to point out something else. On the anniversary of 3/11, as in 3/11 2021, the pandemic anniversary, NASA dropped the largest piece of space junk ever dropped before. It was like 2.9 tons. And that particular pallet of space junk has resurfaced in the news because a few months ago, a piece of it hit a home in Florida. Now NASA is being sued for $80,000 because of that space junk. And I think this is significant because at the time I said the anniversary, the pandemic, suggests here that there's a correlation between space junk and the virus. And if you look at the correlation, it's simply the inner space, outer space, cyberspace. We're talking about the commons. Low Earth orbit is a metaphor for our commons mentally, which we interact with one another through the cyberspace. So cyberspace being infected with mind viruses and mind junk is problematic for us all to coexist. Similarly, outer space being saturated with space junk makes it impossible for us to coexist. Now, the reason we cannot coexist is all attributable to one man, Elon Musk, leading space junk and mind junk propagator on the world and above. And so the significance here is simply that the pandemic prepared us for the advent of the mind virus, where now we're talking about mind viruses the way we talk about physical viruses. So now the space junk and mind virus correlate. They're both products of one rich guy having too much power and influence the junk, the mind viruses, the pollution of the commons by one person with too much money, too much power, and it's all to create a blowback. So the public says we can't have so much free speech. This caused the right wing to radicalize and get a nuke from Putin, and whatever happens next, they're going to blame free speech and the right wing and Elon Musk. He's set up as a scapegoat, but I'm just saying the fact that the very piece of space junk that is the matter of contention right now came from a 311 junk drop, highly significant from a Metascript perspective. Big tell. Okay, let me play this clip. Astronaut dials 911.
Listen to this. An astronaut sends NASA into a frenzy when he accidentally called 911 from space.
Look out, and you're wondering how this is humanly possible, but this is how. Andrei Kuipers was orbiting the Earth from the International Space Station when he made the astronomical blunder. Now, to call down to Earth, you have to dial 9 first, and then you press 011. That, on the space station, I imagine they have it in like magic marker on the wall. Well, the 60-year-old astronaut forgot the 0, and he called 911 dispatch in Houston. Well, apparently calls from space usually work, but as you can imagine, there was a huge delay here.
Now, sometimes they forget the delays when the astronauts talk to school children. And the reason why astronauts only field questions from school children, which are usually like, why'd you want to become an astronaut? What do you eat in space? Is they don't want adult level questions. They don't want to open up the floodgates because if one of us were to be there and would ask something skeptical, they wouldn't be able to answer. There's so many issues with the ISS. There's so many holes in that thing. Obviously, pun intended, the thing falls apart under any scrutiny, and anyone who is familiar with video of scuba diving at night, like, people go down at night to go watch manta rays mate. They're like 50 feet underwater with a spotlight, and the spotlight doesn't go that far. You have the same exact effect on the videos that you see from the ISS spacewalks because they're all underwater and the lights are off. It's a dark pool. This explains the bubbles in space phenomenon, which a lot of the glorfs already have accepted as natural. They call it space dust. They just refuse to see, but we're not trying to convince them. None are so blind as those who refuse to see. Who said that? Sounds like something. I have a few ideas, but we'll see. Okay, this quote is attributed to. Who is this attributed to? There's a few versions of it I'm looking at, but it's a truism. Now, the expression is not in the Bible, but some people attribute it to Jesus. We'll just give it to Plato until we find out otherwise. Let me see who's in the chat, and then we'll move forward here. I had a comment I wanted to get to yesterday. This was posted after the live stream. Jennifer Reeves said, there were 4 stabbed in New York City, East Village, Sunday, too. We were noticing something, and I think the caller drew our attention to this. You had the Fordyce shooter, Mad Butcher. So Fordyce, 4 people killed, 44 years old. There was some kind of reoccurring theme here, and we were just kind of picking up on it. Arkansas mass shooting appeared to have been random. We looked into this story, and everything about it seems very much fake and connected to, I would say, the bigger theme here that we've been pointing out. The Mad Butcher is a huge clue, and we'll talk about this and others, but fake until proven real. We're just mostly looking at these things for what their ulterior meaning is. Russia says U.S. is responsible for deadly Ukrainian attack on Crimea. Yeah, there was some kind of attack on a beach, and a bunch of people ran. Looked like a scene out of Leave the World Behind, but apparently we're going to be retaliated against. Hopefully Seattle. I want to bring up Witsit Gets It. Witsit Gets It has yet to respond. I asked him if he believes in chemtrails. And the reason why is that he cannot honestly believe in them. Witsit Gets It is a professional flat earth debater. He's constantly debating against the globe earthers, and he cites every single logical fallacy that he hears. He calls it out, formal and informal. He's pretty good at it. My point of it is, using these logical fallacies to defeat the arguments against his side is great, but why doesn't he use them against his own side's beliefs, things that they can't substantiate? For example, chemtrails. It's pretty much the case that everybody who makes their way into Trutherville at some point accepts the existence of chemtrails, unless they really think about it. And even then, there are a number of squirrely things people do to retain a belief that the sky is falling. They'll say, oh, it's not about the chemtrails, it's about stratospheric aerosol injections. Well, then, why are we talking chemtrails? They constantly have ways of moving it around. And one of the things they do is they pretend that the questions that they're raising have no answers or have not been answered, like it's a mystery. What's that mysterious spray? Loaded questions, appeals to and arguments from ignorance. So my point of it is, Witsit Gets It could not possibly claim to believe in chemtrails without citing one of half a dozen or more, without rather using half a dozen or more logical fallacies. It can't happen. And I think he knows this, and he won't be able to claim ignorance. Most chemtrail believers ignore what I'm saying and pretend like they don't get the significance of accepting a loaded question, and that's fine. But there's no way Witsit Gets It doesn't know that what are they spraying is a loaded question. He doesn't allow this type of logical fallacy to get a pass in any of his debates. So I'm just suggesting here that he's not capable of honestly believing in it. He must therefore dishonestly believe in it, and I'm interested to see how he asserts that it exists. How is he going to claim that chemtrails exist without resorting to one of the very things that he doesn't allow in any of his own debates? And this is day 2, and he has been ignoring my question. And what does that say? What does it say about a person, a truther, who can't answer a simple question, do you believe in chemtrails? Like, you think it's an obvious yes, but he knows where I'm coming from, and he knows that we're going to use his answer against him. Because if he's being honest, he's going to say, no, there's no way I can believe this. If he's being honest. And if he does that, it's going to upset all of his subscribers because, by and large, if you do a Venn diagram, every flat earther is a chemtrail believer. That's pretty much the case. And when I say flat earthers, I don't mean shape agnostics. I don't mean globe skeptics. I mean flat earthers. And flat earthers go with chemtrail believers. Okay, getting to your comments. Let's see who has arrived here. Okay, awesome. John Francis Diana South, Zinvalis P. Trippa, Violet Pengon, Duas Impera says shout out to the 33rd degree. Yeah, if you are an IPR listener, you do have a Mind War inoculation it's kind of included in the package here. You get Mind War inoculation, but you also have sort of a de facto 33rd degree initiation. You know all the secrets at the capstone level. You probably know more than most of the people who get there just by being good members. And you're also privy to other secrets that are usually not part of what is revealed in the secret societies. And this because media itself at the highest level pretty much is functioning like a secret society, need to know basis. People at the top know a lot more. And the stuff we know about how media operates isn't understood by the people who are down the pyramid. I mean, it's just so compartmentalized. So yes, you are essentially 33rd degree plus. All right, joined by Gematrio 101 says Illuminati birthday 6/24/1717. Is that true? I thought the Illuminati was born on May 1st, 1776. What you're referring to is the first Masonic Grand Lodge. So the Grand Lodge of England was founded on 6/24/1717. The Freemasons were born on May 1st, 1776. But the way I guess you would start it like this. Templars disbanded 3/22/1312. 3/22, interesting date. And went underground, resurfaced as the Masons. That's how they trace their lineage. So the Freemasons didn't just emerge in a vacuum 6/24/1717, but rather were the reemergence of an underground order who had to wait until it was safe to reemerge without having to face being burned at the stake. And you have the youth group in the Masons called the de Molay, named for Jacques de Molay, the leader of the Templars who was burned at the stake. Kind of interesting, you'd have your children sign up for a youth group named after a guy who was accused of worshiping the devil and who was burned at the stake. All right, exploring again. Alex Lip says another summer of fake riots, LARPfest 2024. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Another summer of love, more peaceful protests. Jennifer Reeves, Lean Dion, ears up. Echo Charlie says Julian Assange is out on bail. Yeah, Saint Assange. He's like a saint to the QAnoners. Look, I have Q fatigue, really bad, and I don't care if JFK Jr. comes back. Like I'm gonna be like, okay, fine, don't care. Julian Assange comes out. He's not an auto hoaxer. I don't care. He's not as high up as we are on the pyramid of knowledge when it comes to how media works. He is some kind of propagandist at some level that still adheres to the MSM paradigm. So he's not a truth. I mean, he's not an auto hoaxer. And if they're not auto hoaxers, they're at best world stage characters, personages, possibly even dupes. But we'll look into it. Diana South says, C level, why not C curve? Right? Good question. And nobody's ever seen the curve. If you say you've seen the curve, you're a curvert. Tim Osman says use Braze browser or AdGuard. How do you people still have ads? I like ads. I use ads to see what they think they know about me. Like after every live stream, I get hit by ads from Sandy Hook. It's like, okay, they think they have a way to tap into my sympathy, perhaps. But I do like ads. I actually think they're useful. Diana says more simulation, bad prop guys, Parapsody, like using real bullets, not blanks. They'll use simunition, by the way. Simunition. It looks real. It looks. They even leave welts. We have many examples I can point to. Jamitra 101 says they really think we're stupid. Well, they know that the massified mind. So let's talk about that for a moment. What is the massified mind? The massified mind is one that adheres to the worldview presented by the MSM, the mainstream mediated. And it's beyond just news. It's news, entertainment, fake history. It's the entire echo chamber. And it is an immersive illusion. And we are hoodwinked. And what does this mean? And I'm just speaking from a little bit of experience here, because the Masonic ritual, the initiation, has multiple levels of interpretation. And one of them, which you don't really hear, but this is pretty blatant, is that the outsider who is brought in has a wool sack over their head. And that symbolizes something which you're informed of later. So they're brought in with a rope around their neck and they're dragged around the room 3 times, and then they tell an oath, they give an oath. Then the hood is removed and they see the light. So you're shown the light and who has the light, which is the insiders in the cult. And one of the things that you're explaining in your entrance is that you are an ignorant wanderer in the wilderness of darkness. Meaning everyone outside the temple is in darkness, everyone inside has the light. So what is it that separates them? Well, the profane have this wool sack, the wool over their eyes. They don't have the right interpretation, but it's by design. You can't get in if you're profane. There's a guy at the door with a sword. So it's designed, I believe this explains perfectly this two-tiered society, insiders and outsiders. And the outsiders are purposefully misled with exoteric interpretations for media and religion and probably science. I mean, probably everything, pretty much. Like, there's a point where real science gets augmented with special effects. That's one of the reasons why we always look at the space program itself. You're looking at the merging of movie with reality into one, and the public can't fact test it and they just believe. So the public has been hoodwinked. They've been led into darkness. So the hood symbolizes darkness. But today, the hoodwink is the screen. It's clear. And it pretends to be a window to the world that can show you anything, anywhere, anytime. And it's just there to inform you. You just have the screen up to your face, so you're always informed. But the issue is, the masses are not informed. They're all misinformed. They're fundamentally misinformed. And Therefore, the screen is not a window to inform you about the world, but it's a filter to conform you to a worldview. And so all those who are conformed to the hoodwinked, the digital veil over their heads, all those who have conformed to this particular version are stupefied. They are programmed and programmable and triggerable. They can be triggered by fake dead people, by crocodile tears. They can be manipulated by images on the screen. We watch it all the time. I mean, we watch this dispassionately. We're ivory tower. We look at them gnashing their teeth, fighting in the streets, rioting and protesting, wondering when the world's going to end, panic attacks induced by media, and we're unaffected by it because we know what it is. So you only have three groups of people. You have the programmed, and they're the ones who still buy into all the stuff. And then you have the programmers. We don't know who they are. We know some of the meta scripters by name, but we don't know ultimately all the programmers, who is in the know at that level. But then the third group, which is new, would be the deprogrammed. And there were no fully deprogrammed prior to 2012. 9/11 truthers were never even close. And most of them are still bitterly clinging to the original version of the contemporary myth. They're not willing to let it go. They cling to their dead people. They're corpse clutchers, running around with theatrical blood on their hands, crying out for martyrs that don't actually exist, and they're missing the point. This has all been mind war, and you have to be deprogrammed to see it. And this, by the way, is the IPS Evening Deprogram for 6/24/2024. Alan Smith says, "Hey Tim, did I get you live?" Yes. And if you don't want to miss any of our live events, live streams, go to ips.monster and subscribe to the newsletter, and you will be getting a number of, well, newsletters, archives, and then any channel updates. So 1776 was 1717 was 306 years ago. Okay, continuing. Eric Stevens says, "I've started to wear my helmet inside. You can't be too careful." No, you can't be. There was a city council member in Canada, and she was in bed, and a space rock, a meteor, came down through her house and hit the pillow next to her. Like, she almost died. Could have killed her. Anyway, it hit her house and it landed on a pillow. I think I had a few problems with that story. My problem with it was mainly that if a space rock hits your house, let's say you're in bed and a space rock comes down, and as reported here, people saw it. They saw a fireball coming down from the sky. And so it was witnessed by people as being this ball of fire falling down. And yet, when it landed in her bedroom, it was just on her pillow. And I'm like, well, how does that happen? How do you have a rock punch a hole through the roof with all that force, but then it just lands on your bed, on your pillow? I think I have, yeah, this is it. This is from meteorite crashes through ceiling and lands on woman's bed. Her name was Ruth Hamilton. It was 2.8 pounds. So that actually could have crushed her skull. She could have been craniumed right there in bed. So if you're wearing a helmet to bed, look, you're just following the science. Just like if you wear a mask in the shower. And many people did. Many people wore masks in the showers because of the science. I always thought that was ironic. Because after 9/11, the terrorists got waterboarded. You know, where they put a cloth on your face and dump water on you. And then after COVID-19, everybody was a terrorist. Everybody's a super spreader. Everybody has the capability of killing the whole world. And the ones who really believe this, who really internalize the fact that we're all terrorists now, they wore the masks in the showers, which is a cloth over the face while the water is being dumped on it. So they were like self waterboarding in a way in their home FEMA camps. Instead of going to Guantanamo to get waterboarded, people just are so obedient now. They accept the designation of terrorist and they waterboard themselves in the privacy of their own home. No soldiers needed to make it happen. They just, in the showers, just like people self-gaslight. They self-waterboard. Anyway, meteorite crashes through ceiling, lands on her bed. Too bad it didn't kill her. I mean, it would have been fake, so I can say that. And I truly believe that the only way for a meteorite to crash through your roof and hit you on the head is if it's fake. So I wish it would crush. I wish I had killed her. It would have been funny, because the public would have gone out to buy masks. I mean, helmets. They would have gone out for helmets, just like Eric Stevens wears a helmet to bed. Oh my gosh, she said, there's a rock in my bed. She called 911. The 2.8-pound rock, the size of a large man's fist, or a small man with big fists. I mean, Trump's pretty large and he's got really small hands. Barely missed Hamilton's head, leaving drywall and debris all over my face. This captivated the internet and handed scientists an unusual chance to study a space rock that had crashed to Earth. Here's the tell. She says, it just seems unreal. It's surreal. I look around and I say, yep, there's a hole in my ceiling. It goes on to say, meteoroids hurl towards Earth every hour of every day. When they're large enough, they survive the trip through the Earth. Some are sold on eBay. Okay, well, hers on eBay, raked in, looks like she auctioned it for $4 million. And how easy would this be to fake? You just have to trick somebody at the local news level and let it go viral. And they believe anything. They're just true believers. If they see a picture, they'll think it's real. Okay, here we go. We're looking at the auctioneer site. Well, $4 million. Now, there was another one, a coffin maker, during 2020. For some reason, it was going broke, which doesn't make any sense. I thought everybody was dying. But a piece of space rock fell through his roof, and he sold it for a few $1,000,000. All right, let's continue here. Peach Ripper says, still interesting, the original number was 9011. Yes. J. Dig says, they forgot the delays in the official Apollo release from NASA. Also, one of the NASA employees in Capricorn 1 calculated the delays were wrong and they killed him. Ooh, interesting. And a literalist says, I wonder how many moon phase only change on the next days while the Earth ground change to night and day. Oh, from the ISS? You don't see a lot of video of the moon from the ISS. You don't see a lot. And when you do, and this is one of the repeated observations that will tell you it's fake, is you never have a human operator holding the cameras anymore. Unless you're getting a photograph of the person taking a picture, and you don't get to see what they see. You only see them taking the picture. Later, you see the photograph. But like you would never see an astronaut with a selfie, like from an iPhone, with the Earth behind them, because it wouldn't actually look like that. You would see the stage. There are a few shots you can't see that give it away. A lot of the times what gives away the illusion is what should be there but what isn't. And there are things they can't do. Take off your shirts, NASA. No, can't. Straps, harnesses. And you ISS believers, do a selfie with the ISS. It's going to show up. You have the app. It's going to be there in a few minutes. Just sit down on a chair, align yourself with your camera, selfie angle, video, record the ISS. Do it live. You can't. You literally cannot. You cannot go outside and call it out. The ISS is going to be here because it's predictable, and here's my app, and you can't just do a selfie with it. And it's kind of sad, but you have to admit it. And the best you can do is, I don't know, call us names or use ad hominem suggesting that there's something wrong with us for not believing, but you can't even provide evidence for what you believe. Nick Fingar says, you've convinced me to doubt the chemtrails, but it's flat. You can see too far. I see the beaches on an island 10 miles away. Well, you haven't seen the curve because you're not a curvert. You have to lie to yourself to say you've seen the curve. But when it comes to chemtrails, there's a reason why they need you to believe in a lot of BS. And truthers have been fed a lot of it. Echo Charlie says, when I would go to DC, my taxi drivers always showed me where Reagan was shot. Taxi drivers. Fascinating conversation, we had yesterday about this whole thing. Reagan being shot by Hinckley, inspired by the movie Taxi Driver, by Robert De Niro. So you have a Robert De Niro character who inspires an assassin. And now Robert De Niro's out there deranged over Trump. And every one of these Trump trials has had a Joker Batman association. Joker 2 being filmed, the Joker Maxwell as Rello guy, and then, of course, De Niro, who was in the Joker movie. But the characters that De Niro has played add in another level of complexity here, another level of depth to the reoccurring theme of this incoming JFK-ification of Donald Trump. Okay, continuing. Phones are open, by the way. The phones are open if you want to call in. The number is 563-999-3664. Infinite Plane Radio. Hey, what's up, caller?
Tim, my man.
Hey, thanks for calling.
Whole bunch of stuff, but appreciate that. Thanks for having me.
Sure.
Couple
Anything at
things
all.
I wanted to talk to you about.
Sure, floor is yours.
Excellent. Um, have you watched The Boys?
I've only watched a few excerpts where they're dropping a lot of QAnon references, almost like they're mocking conspiracy theorists again. But what about Boys? I may have to check it out now.
Yeah, I got you, bro. The clips aren't enough, man. It's pretty deep. Especially the last couple of seasons. They really laid it out how they pull off the psyops and the gaslighting, and the I guess they just laid out their innate narcissism, and they do it through these characters, and it was interesting. It's a totally grotesque show, so I can't recommend it to you. It's foul, but they have millions and millions of people watching it, and they're putting so much in there, bro. I was watching that shit. I started watching it the last season, and I was faded as fuck, and I ended up just having to watch all 3 episodes because I got so lost in the sauce I couldn't believe it.
It says it's satirical, and I will check it out, especially if it's popular. Because one of the things that I'm attempting to do here, what we do is we try to figure out what's being projected onto the collective psyche. What's in the programming, so we know how they're going to respond. And if these are all windows, these are all portals into the collective id, and I'd like to know what's being inserted into it. So I'll probably take a look at it, and this is what's happening for anyone who's asking.
Yeah, it'll trip you out, man. I don't doubt it. They really, yeah. There were some. It was pretty throughout. Maybe not the first couple of seasons, or maybe I wasn't properly paying attention. But the more you get into it, the more they start putting in there, and now every episode is just filled because they got a ton of eyes on it. I think it's pretty popular. Yeah, it's
Okay,
advertised everywhere where I'm at.
I'll take a look. I mean, I just finished watching Fallout from start to finish, and like everything else, we can predict that it's going to contain predictive programming, and the messaging in these things is just so direct, and not only is it like prescient and predictive, but oftentimes it mirrors what's happening real time, which is how you know it's all programming.
Gotcha. I wanted to ask you this about Fallout, bro. So, when it does like the little cutscene to the Fallout logo, and then it does that like flashy shit?
Yes.
I saw that. I was at work. I was watching it, and I was like, damn, man, that gave me predictive programming for some sort of EMP or something electrical
Oh,
uh,
okay.
happening. Yeah. That's what it gave me. It gave me a very ominous vibe towards that. But it's like they have it so it's like, all right, they got a gang of shit that they've already supplanted in your mind, so they just got their master plan, and they'll just you know do it as they please, whatever suits their agenda best. And yeah, it seems like they got it pretty well planned out.
Yeah, and these movies convey like narratives and the visuals. So we have so many visuals of stuff falling from the sky, and I've been calling this out since Moonfall. They're getting us ready for space junk because it wasn't a normal thing. Well, now NASA's getting sued for space junk. They just make it real. But they do it by dropping in these news stories, just planting these memes, and eventually, when they put it in the news, we have a frame of reference. Now, our frame of reference is fiction, but in your subconscious, all these stored memories, fiction and nonfiction, news, entertainment, are all in the same place, and it's all drawn from the same place. So, in a way, the way they program us reminds me of how the Mandela effect gets people to fabricate memories or misassociate what they imagine or even things from entertainment or parodies with an actual memory. So yeah, this is what they're doing. They're giving us a frame of reference. I consider Fallout to be a PSA. So we all know how to respond after the nuke. And of course, it's Jonathan Nolan who did Westworld, and it has all kinds of overlapping themes there. All of it about death of the West, which is why they made Fallout a Western. So I look forward to checking out the Boys show because, like you said, if it's massively popular, it's going to be loaded with programming and the QAnon stuff in there. I saw some clips, and so obviously it's highly targeted at this point.
Yeah, you'll see, bro. You'll enjoy it. I don't doubt it. But you're absolutely right about all the stuff you just said, man. Genius. Can't believe you figured this shit out. You really helped me out, bro. But
Well, thanks for calling. I mean, we have
yeah,
like I
uh,
I'm the one who's going to go down there and watch Barbie on the day it comes out, so we can deconstruct it. And so we appreciate people like you. You watch 4 seasons of The Boys, and maybe it's not for everybody, but the more of us who are paying attention, the better we get as a think tank when it comes to breaking this stuff apart.
I did have something else for you, bro. This rapper, Julio Fulio, I got this information from my boy. He just got murdered on his birthday. Uh, let's see. Uh, yeah. So Fulio, aka the Joker, was shot and killed yesterday on his birthday, 33 days before the Paris Olympics at 4:40 a.m. Um, just thought that was interesting.
That is, I didn't know. Okay, I'm looking at this individual, Fulio, and I know he was killed at 26, and they didn't have a lot of answers, but I didn't know he had an association or name Joker. Let me see here. Okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay. Fascinating. It says, man, that Folio
Ah,
died for dissing
bro,
Baby Joker. Is that what happened? Who's Baby Joker? Okay,
I don't even
I-
know, man.
I'll look into it, but I didn't know the
but
name Joker was
I
associated
was,
with this, but it's here.
it, it seems like uh, I'm just, they got it. There's just so many feds, and I'm like, how are there this many feds where it's like, okay, you're going into these conspiracy theories, and the majority of these people aren't even dupes, or there's some, or maybe they're just trying to make money. I don't know. It's very lucrative business what they're doing, selling people with hopium and yeah, that's what like you were talking about earlier. I was like, it's just such an easy cop out belief. All these alternative narratives, the conspiracy theory realm, very easy to accept. It's like, oh, they're just, you know, trying to destroy us and evil and
Yes.
good and
That's one of the
you
principal
know.
arguments advanced by InfoWars. It's they're so evil, they're so bad, and that's just an appeal to motive. And the appeal to motive just says the enemy's so bad, why wouldn't they do this? Therefore, we can assume they're doing it. And there's money in it, and I'm looking at it as a new fire and brimstone. Like you could start a church and preach about the end of the world and maybe find a lot of people who will join you. And there's always been money in having inside information or pretending to. And the trutherism has become a huge grifter cult. And the question is, who are feds, provocateurs, and then who are just there for the money? And I intend, as we move away from the whole Trutherville community, to really break away from that whole group because I think it's just contaminated. And truth is the least of their interests these days. They manufacture evidence, they manufacture anything to bolster their claims. And I notice that very few truthers will ever go back and offer some kind of a correction if they're proven wrong. They just keep on S posting to oblivion.
I honestly think those people that have been listening to Alex Jones for like 10 years or are caught up in some stupid shit and they hear you talk, like for me, it could be a game changer. And that's why I had this idea. You probably already thought of this, but I thought if you created a few shorts, you could get uh, people like me and people in chat or Discord, we could all create, a TikTok account or an Instagram account, and we could all post that shit. And hopefully it picks up the algorithm a bit, and hopefully some soft ass fools that are, scrolling will see it and hear you. Cause yeah, you'd be dropping. Yeah, the other day you were talking about how these people have been they've been waiting for World War III, like it's coming tomorrow for the past 4 years. It's like, oh my gosh, people are lost.
You know what? That's a great point. And I think I'll take that advice, produce some shorts, and see if we can launch these on our own because this is a long format thing. We'll talk for hours at a time, and there's no way in this 3 hours that someone's just going to find that 1 minute thing just on the random. And so if there's a couple of minutes or a certain point that I make that might hook someone, I should probably isolate it and do a short. And I definitely could leverage the think tank to more or less catapult it. And I think we should. We can probably get a lot of people to leave Alex Jonestown. And this is way more constructive anyway. And better for your mental health, if you ask me. The doom, the fear, the angst, that's, I think that's even,
Oof.
everyone knows. I mean, this is a well established fact that this stuff is bad for your mental and your physical health, even stress, psychosomatics, etc.
Yeah, I've reached that nirvana point where it's like, yeah, I hear anything about NASA, and it'll trip you out sometimes. You're sitting there and you're thinking, man, there are really 99% of people that believe that this shit is real, and there's no fucking way that you could ever, ever, ever convince me that it's real. I don't care if you MK Ultra program me. You could lobotomize me, and I'd still know that shit's fake. And that's a big one. That's a big one. The space thing. It's like somebody's just got to sit these, because even people that consider themselves intelligent and other people would consider them intelligent, they can't get past that just logical barrier that won't let them accept anything outside the mainstream. Um,
Yeah.
and I learned that a lot at school. Uh, yeah.
Oh, in school, I bet it's most. See, in
Yeah.
school, they're clearly, and they don't even say it explicitly, but the entire time you're in the education, whether it's public or private, you're always conditioned to accept the screen as an authority. So you have the teacher, authority figure representing whatever the state's disseminating to the students, but the TV screens in every classroom, everything coming from the news is considered to be vetted and authoritative. And it also assumes that we're all on the same sheet. We may have different political beliefs, but we all believe that the world is like this, it's going to end in this many years, these are the conditions, and nothing gets questioned. It's a massive blind spot. And so I see this not as an intelligence issue, but more like a philosophical crisis. And the fact of it is, we're all programmed by default, and you have to consciously deprogram as an individual. You can't just pull people out, but you can certainly reach people with ideas. But yeah, this is conditioning for decades that you're looking at confronting, and yeah, right there in school, that's mind control central.
Yeah, that's how they start you. Well, that's the indoctrination station. That's the original one. And then your parents are lost in the sauce. And it's like, yeah, that's the thing. It's all about the financial system that they got going on. And really, yeah, and that's the financial and the legal system. I feel like it's just such a terrifying weapon that they're using. Because if I wasn't, you know, if I had some good amount of money behind me, same with you or anybody, like, I'd be chilling. You know what I'm saying?
Sure,
But
I think that is
they
the
set it
case.
out so that,
They don't want competition. Like, look, that's one of the
set
things I've
it
been
out
pointing
so
out.
that,
There's no competition when it comes to the programming of the masses. Like, left and right are on the same team. And conspiracy theorists are the fringe right. The wokesters are fringe left. But they're all in the same closed system, and there's no internal competition. No one is out there shouting an alternative perspective. It's always just a spin on whatever is already in the box. And besides just school, I mean, it's not that I'm not knocking education whatsoever. I'm just saying that the frame of reference you're given programs you to accept the news, which is your continuing education as you move along. So you never stop being steered within their parameters. And there is no alternative. It's incredible to me. There is none.
yeah, you got to knock it quite a bit. At least this educational system is like, if you're trying to teach me space, you know, get the fuck out of my face.
It's something like that. I'm like, well,
Yeah.
you cannot graduate unless you believe in global warming, which to me is just eschatology. It's a end of times doomsday scenario. You have to believe the official version of every news story. Like, you could not be a conspiracy theorist, much less a skeptic, and get passing grades. You'd have to toe the line and say the right lies to get A's, just to get past it. I was in the military, and looking back, I was 100% brainwashed about all the weapons of mass destruction and so many other things. But I could not have existed in that environment if I knew what I know right now. It wouldn't have worked. And I'm thinking, wow, these people who are in the military are terrified. They're scared, and they think they're saving a bunch of people from these threats that don't actually exist. So I'm looking at it that says, I don't know, looking back, people are in a state of philosophical crisis because they've given faith. They've given their faith to the screen, which is a huge flaw. It's a logical fallacy argument from authority, and the authority of this monolithic, ubiquitous presence has obviously been abused to what I refer to as the digital hoodwink, where they have put everyone into a state of relative ignorance about the bigger picture. And the edges of our experiences are areas where they can just augment it with CGI and special effects, and they always do. And that's, to me, that's what the space program represents. The edge of what we know, and they cover it up with some cheesy special effects.
Yeah, you're definitely right. It is the new Bible. The screen is the new Bible, and whatever is on the screen is the Word of God, practically. And if you don't believe that, um, you're not, a non-believer. What's that word I'm looking for?
Yeah, heretic.
You're blasphemous and all this.
Yep.
Yeah, you're a heretic, exactly. And the way I see it is that, the government feels like they have a divine right to do this. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're using that type of mentality when they're coming at us. And that's why they're up there, and they act like they're not scamming everybody out of their souls. You know what I'm saying?
And
Like,
divine right.
everybody, the
Uh,
biggest thing that I can see is,
no, you're right. It's like they are the
go ahead.
look. When I say the Bible has been updated, now it's the TV, it's the media as a church, but they have a total God construct in the globe. They have space as heaven, and they have arrogated unto themselves this divine mandate. And in 2020, we could see every church shut down, all the religious, even at Mecca, they stopped running around the cube. It was like every one of the old traditional religions, every one of their gods locked down. And the only one that didn't lock down was science, scientism and the media. If you were a priest, you were locked down. But if you were a member of the media, you had a pass because you were considered essential. So yeah, they locked down old religions and showed us that COVID, the new devil construct, dominated. And you'll notice that the left really love the power and authority, and so it's very consistent because their religion
Mm,
dominated.
yeah. The what was I gonna say? Uh,
Well,
yeah, the
yeah.
COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. That was probably the most. We cannot forget about that because a lot of like, even though people still wear masks and stuff, that was real ugly for a minute there. You know, where they were, where there was such a deep like, are you getting the vax? Like, whoa, I'm like, holy crap! Like, get away from me. You know what I'm
Yes,
saying?
major
It was
privacy
deep,
invasion.
and it really showed.
Yeah,
Yeah, it really showed their hand. They showed their hand. I don't know what you think about this. You know, do you think they could pull it off again? Some sort of virus? I think they got that shit in the bag.
I think the next variant,
From what I saw,
maybe the next variant though is going to be fallout, nuclear fallout, because you can have a partisan split on a pandemic, and the right wing doesn't believe in it, so they won't stay home. But everybody will lock down for fallout. But what 2020 revealed is how susceptible the collective is to the programming. And no matter what we say, no matter what we see, no matter what we know, they're going to respond obediently. So we watched, I believe, the implementation of a new religious paradigm, complete with religious paraphernalia. PPE, basically a disposable burqa to protect you from the new concept of sin. You had the hand sanitizer, which is holy water for this new church. They introduced a whole new paradigm, and we watched everybody capitulate to it. And I think it was educational, but I didn't fall for it. But I did watch everybody, and it felt like we were living through Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
undoubtedly. You see, that's our biggest problem is that we're in these people's land. Every piece of property across the continent of North America, they look at it as they own it, it's in trust, and whenever you go and supposedly buy that shit, they're just renting it out to you or whatever, and there's always conditions to your use, with the zoning and this and that, and a lot of it, that's perfectly making sense, but when you look at it, it's like, okay, they're running a business and they're just profiting so fucking much up at the top, and they just trickle it down to their little cronies, and then they got like, a gang of people, millions, tens of millions, hundreds of people at the bottom, or in that bottom area, just struggling. And that's the thing; they don't even mind if you have money necessarily, but they just need to keep people's minds and their spirits asleep, or just doing foul shit. You know what I'm saying there, Tim?
Bread and circuses, Netflix and EBT, they have everybody on lockdown, and the entertainment has never been better. I mean, I watch the programming, and as a former film studies major, I really do appreciate the artistry of it all, even though I know its real purpose. And that makes it all the more it's intriguing when we look at how sophisticated the mind control is, where, yeah, billions of people are synchronized with a false worldview. But they don't know because the false worldview, wherever it doesn't align, if you test it and question it, you're called a conspiracy theorist. So they don't want the masses to know that their version of the world is just a map, and the map is not the terrain, and the makers are misrepresenting it to their own advantage in many different ways. So they have this idea that the concept of the world and the real thing are the same, and that's the biggest trick of all. Thinking that the mediated version equals the real thing, and it's so far off. But again, we're heretics for saying so.
Yeah, it's a big deal. You know what trips me out? How your next door neighbor could believe uh, one of these JFK conspiracy theories, and they got people, in these groups, and there are hundreds of thousands, millions of people that believe in the most outlandish shit you've ever heard of, including chemtrails. That shit is ridiculous. You know, it's like, have you researched it at all? I used to believe in chemtrails a while back. I didn't do 5 minutes of research. I just saw somebody posting about lines in the sky, and I was like, oh shit, they're trying to kill us. It's like, what?
That was me too.
Where do you even?
And I can
Yeah,
explain that. That's
yeah,
called,
yeah,
I call
exactly.
that a low information believer or a low information belief. I just kind of believed it off of what? The appeal to motive. The bad guys are so bad, why wouldn't they do that? But when I really thought about it, then I was able to deconstruct it. But what I've had to differentiate here is the low information beliefs are way different than informed beliefs. And then you have low information non belief and informed non belief. So I prefer to know why I don't believe in something. But ironically, the mainstream news consumers are all low info. They don't know why they believe what they believe. They just do. Kind of like how you kind of just tacitly accept chemtrails until you question it. The difference is they never question their own side. And truthers are guilty of the same. That's why I bring this up. If you're a truther, you need to really question why you're accepting chemtrails because it's flimsy at best. And I believe that chemtrail theory was put out there to be a right wing version of climate change, to get both sides thinking that the bad guys on the other side are destroying the world, and they have them both in agreement. It's clever.
Yeah, that's got to be it right there. Yeah, I think they really want people in these boxes, in these states of mind, and it's all pretty traumatic and fearful. That makes sense. All these little niches that they got people in, and they got people feeling isolated, and people are going a little bit nuts, not to the extent where it's like, if I see something on yeah, I see something on the news about any sort of conspiracy theorist doing some outlandish shit. It's like there's an agenda behind that, and they faked it.
Well, there was a guy in our
Most likely.
chat. I don't know if he was being facetious, but he says that he goes to sleep with his helmet on because of space junk. And I'm like, well, you just got to go with the science. And if you trust the science, that's what you would do.
Yeah, exactly. It is a very what's that word? Paranoid. Everybody's paranoid. Um,
Yeah, you're right.
got everybody paranoid.
That we are, by definition, we have, well, they're superstitions. I think many of the things we believe in because of
Yeah.
psychological operations, you could classify them as superstitions, but the state reinforces them with feedback from its media, which makes them real. So the next step up would be hyperstitions, superstitions that are collectively agreed to exist. So they're not real, but everybody treats them as such. And if you think about it, truthers live in a world of hypotheticals. What if chemtrails are real? What if 5G towers are sterilizing us? What if we are being depopulated? What if? And it's always the what if worst case scenarios. And that's what has them hooked. It's always the worst case. World War III, what if it happens tomorrow? And I think that's part of the game here. You keep everyone focused on the perpetual now, keep them in the end times. You might as well, you put them mentally, you put them in a bunker. They're mentally locked down. They can't think about the future because, well, World War III starts tomorrow.
Yes, it does. And yeah, and that's yeah, my bad. Continue.
Well, no, this is great. I'm looking at this rapper you brought up, and I haven't seen any new information on it, but I'm going to bookmark it. You brought up again Folio shot after dissing Baby Joker. Um, I don't take any of these events as real. I always say it's real until, I mean, fake until proven real. But I have this one bookmark in case anyone has any more information. I didn't know about the Baby Joker connection, so I'll probably dig into that one. You also brought up The Boys, this TV series, which I'm going to check it
Yep.
out. And I think I saw some recent articles about it. They were connecting one of the characters to Trump. So I appreciate you calling and letting us know about this. And it's on Amazon. I just finished Fallout, so I may check this one out as well and see what I find. But I'm not being facetious at all when I say I watch Amazon and Netflix to know what's going to happen next year. Because we have been consistently right since we've been looking at it in this way since 2019. Like, since 2019, we're watching a documentary 5-part series about a pandemic and how it affects an emergency room. And then we all know what happened next, but it's consistent. So I'm pretty sure that whatever's in this has obvious relevance for the near future.
Gosh, yeah, I remember what I was gonna say. It's like they're they want you to think they're going to reset. You know what I'm saying? Do a big, massive event and shit. Like everything's just leading up to something, and maybe it is. You know, maybe all this Fallout shit and America being the whore, and falling. America being Babylon
Hmm.
falling, and it's like, oh, like what are you guys gonna do next? Like, is it just like I've had like visions of one day like they just come out with a big screen and they, hey guys, we've been fucking with you this whole time. We're about to wipe it all out, and everybody's just panicking. You know what I'm saying? It's like obviously I don't think that's gonna happen, and that's how they do it, but
I think
they
that's
may as well.
a lot of people want that, and I understand it. I understand the Q thing. I don't agree with it, but a lot of them want to see themselves vindicated against a lifetime of being lied to, calling out the liars, and then look, we were right, and we win. We're on the right side of things. I think people want closure, and this plays into that desire for closure. The Great Awakening is being sold to the right. On the left, it's the Great Reset, and both of them are being promised revolution. If we just change the way we do things now and put our trust in this leader, everything will be revealed. All the truth will come out. And this has got to be some kind of a scam, like a Ponzi scam. Um, the idea that aliens are going to come down at some point and put a stop to war and tell us what's up and bring us to a better world. It's a repackaging of different religious ideas. The end of times is just very attractive for so many reasons, for so many people. And unfortunately, I think it's just hope. It's hopium that they can milk. They drive some people with fear. They drive other people with hope. Some people fear the consequences, others are hoping for some kind of reward. Paradise versus hell, the two different real motivators for the masses. And I think neither of these exist. Their doomsdays don't exist, and their great awakening paradises don't exist.
Yeah, they must have had a lot of, or they're really good with the psychology, or they must have a lot of data, or a lot of practice. And I feel like now that they got the phones,
Right. Well, as far as practice goes, it's worth repeating that.
easy money. It's like,
Well,
yeah,
the founder of Netflix, the first CEO and co-founder, he was a descendant of Edward Bernays and Sigmund Freud. But Edward Bernays, this goes back like 100 years, where they were already talking about the public as a collectively programmable singular entity, the massified mind, that you could control behavior, you could create through perception management events, you could create cultures and trends. So here we go: propaganda, 1928, literature from social science and psychological manipulation. But these were tactics that were used to change society. And they've had 100 years to perfect this. And this, of course, now we're in the age of the smartphone, and everybody can be instantaneously contacted with the same meme and message. And we know, too, that Netflix purchased DMs and browser histories from all the Facebook users. So they know everything. They know what's underneath our hoods. They can program us at that level.
yes, they can. Yeah, they know all about everybody. It's just being, and it's so much more important than people realize, when their data is being bought and sold all the time, and it's pretty nefarious. The the people that are using this information. It's quite, scary. They're just using it to be able to better hook people into their web.
Yeah, I came across a term today. First time I've ever heard of it. It was a combination of folklore and disinfo. I think it was dis in folklore. And the article was describing how there are certain archetypal themes and old myths that are encoded into the news in the way they tell the stories to influence those particular populations in specific ways. Dis in folklore, the use of myths and disinformation to bypass critical thinking with archetypal stories. And so this one talks about the repeated story inside the Indo-European culture zone, the Trito myth, the archetype of the shadow structure and the mind going through this journey, and how they encode these stories into political leaders like Trump and his persecution being compared to Christ. And I've seen this repackaged in many different ways, this concept. So you take the Old Testament flood myth, and you can see how today you have the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, which is a repackaged version of an Old Testament myth in order to give us climate change. Only now the god is Gaia instead of the god of the Bible. But what I'm saying is this is disin folklore. This is using ancient myths that already resonate with us because of culture, tradition, and perhaps our psychic structure. That there are certain things we have primal fears of or something that they're tapping into. But I think this is the case, that they know what's beneath the hood. They can manipulate us at deep levels. And so they have us thinking that we're all scientific when in fact, no, we're just the same superstitious sheeple that we've always been underneath this small group.
Genius. That should be a short right there. What you just said, that was fucking genius.
I have a
That was
really okay. I have a really good
yeah.
meme on this one. I'll put that. I have a list here of shorts that I'm gonna do that I'll record here, and I'm gonna storyboard them out, put some nice graphics, make them nice and polished, and then start releasing them. And so I'll do one on Noah and the repackaging of OT myths because when you see these things all lined up together, you can see this is a standard operating procedure. I'm not cherry picking. I can find every aspect of our modern paradigm is templated off of something archaic.
That's what they were talking about in The Boys. It's the main superhero's son, who was like born from a woman that's not a superhero, so he was like naturally born. They get injected, all the superheroes, with some science shit, and then it turns them into superheroes. This superhero called Sister Sage gets brought on to advise the main guy, and she's the smartest woman in the world, or person. She's the smartest person in the world, and she basically is. They're in the boardroom, and she's like, Homelander's talking about how he wants them to like do it together, and she's like, no, he needs to stand alone as the firstborn super, hero, so people can worship him. And I think that's what they do with people like Trump and these archetypes, and especially like the big people like Trump.
Yeah, it's powerful.
That where they,
They seriously
they're
do it
really
on purpose.
polarized. But
I look at these characters like these, and this could be subjects for shorts. You look at someone like Elon Musk, and he's actually a mashup. They mash up Von Braun, Tony Stark, Iron Man, Willy Wonka, and a number of other characters, Jack Parsons. They give him attributes of all these different characters. With Trump, you have the Christ stuff, but then you also have the Batman thing, which is popular with Q, where they align these things. And they have him arrested on the anniversary of MLK's assassination date. So they use a lot of pageantry and theater to create these, like, to layer characters with additional attributes and qualities. And it's all intentional and by design because I think it's archetypal transference is what Carl Jung would call it, but it's certainly part of the programming.
bro, what do you think would happen if you think people would really pop off if this fool Trump gets assassinated? You know what I'm saying? Like the way I see it is like, or at least they fake it. You know, like, oh, right wingers are retaliating against blah 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 for the death of Trump. Yeah,
I think that's the intent. I think
that'd
that
be a good way to go.
would it be like a George Floyd summer, but this time from the other side, and it would make sense. It would make sense. You know, you had the Joker movie preceded, and Joker's a bunch of rioters with masks representing the left and in the class warfare, the underclass, and they have masks on, clown masks, and that preceded 2020. And the symbolism is pretty obvious. But then we have the Batman movie, which has the right wing threat highlighted. And the right wingers actually bomb a dam
Something
and
else.
flood the polls. And if you remember, the GOP's slogan at midterms was flood the polls. So I'm thinking maybe the next big thing, the next big cause of chaos is going to come from the right, you know, left and then right. And it seems like it's perfectly aligned that way. And so that kind of provocation would obviously, whether organic or not, you know they're going to fake a lot of stuff. So they'll have a lot of fake MAGA terrorists ready to go.
I'm right there with you on that. Yeah, because they got to do that little switch up. I feel like it's leading to that. Like they're making people think, oh, it's the left that's doing the rioting. I could definitely see a lot of right wingers in the streets, going nuts.
And
And
the
a
yeah,
lot of people are they got it. The algorithm is killing people. They got like, have you seen it where it's like somebody's comment section on the same video? It's two different people and they're completely different.
yeah, I've been seeing people reporting stuff like this as well, where and it's already bad enough. You can be shadow banned, you can be more or less exiled without even knowing it. It's like Black Mirror. But now the propaganda is targeted. The target marketing of comments and certain comments not showing. Yeah, the whole system is rigged. The media is a rigged game. And that's why I maintain that we have to split away. You know, we have the mainstream and alternative in one box, but let's just create the separate entity and call it the parallel media. Because we're not the anti position, which is always controlled. We're not directly confronting media to stop it, but we are observing it and maintaining a continuous record. So I'm like, let's just go parallel media and try to observe objectively as this thing moves forward because the left and right are just so controlled and they're not open to even talking about the possibility of fakery. You know, they're all auto believers, not just in the space stuff, but in every frame that the news media provides for what's happening that day. They just assume it to be legit. And the thing is, they win because they have the majority. But when we have our own separate, distinct media that coalesces around being skeptics, it won't matter. We won't be drowned out by people who don't know what's going on.
Can't let that happen. Yeah, they're it is a majority wins thing, loudest voice in the room, um, and it's also they have the, or at least on the left, they got the backing of the daddy government, and that's really where the left is like they got that. I feel like it's like the left at the end of the day is where that's really where they want you. They're good with you being on that right in the extreme to create that polarity, but I think in the end it's got to go to that far left, with the communism.
Yeah,
I don't
you're
know.
right.
What do
You're
you
right.
think?
Okay, you know, you're absolutely right because the the breakdown of it is, of course, you have the whole big box is Normieville or MSM, and within it you have the subset of truthers and the woke. The truthers are on the right side of things, and the woke is on the left. The difference is the left is pro government, they're on the side of mass media. So the truthers may be deceived, but at least their heart's in the right place. They're going in the right direction for the most part, but they're misguided. You cannot wake a woker. You can wake a truther if you can convince them that they've been falsely awakened. You can't really wake the normies. And I'm just saying that the wokers, the ones who are fully in line with the big government, yeah, there's no way to even go there. And that is where they want you to go. In fact, I think they're setting up MAGA and the right and cue to take a fall on behalf of anything that goes against media, because the media is, of course,
Damn.
that's the objective. And you said
So
communist, and I'm like,
you think they?
I would say that term, I use it lowercase c. But if you look at the very beginning of the space program, it was always about space communism, this perfect system that they're going to test out on Mars. So it's not a stretch to say that is the agenda. The agenda is neo feudalism, disguised as scientific progress, aka Mars communes.
You you think they'll
90 seconds.
unite us under that type of shit? Under like climate change or some atrocity or something
Yeah, I think that the unifier, the great unifier,
eventually.
is climate change eventually, but maybe the nukes, maybe something that will lock us down.
Not
But
that.
ubiquitous threats. But we'll see. Werner von Braun
That could
predicted.
work like a charm.
Yep. Well, hey, I'm about to run out of time on this phone call here, but I'll continue along these
60
lines.
seconds.
Appreciate you calling in.
Got you, bro. Appreciate your time, man.
Yep.
Excellent work. Yeah. Great job, man.
Thanks. We'll call back anytime and we'll continue this
Thanks, bro.
conversation. Thank you. All right, everyone. That is what's happening. Thank you for calling. Just ran out of time on that phone call. Now, before von Braun, according to his assistant, before he died, and this is some kind of alleged deathbed confession, he said that before the end of the world, we would have to deal with several threats. One of them would be environment, the others would be meteors, and then there would be aliens. Yep. Did von Braun really say that an alien false flag would be used? And we have this account of what he said, but one of them had to do with asteroids. And I thought, okay, that can't be true because you can't predict these things. How could you create an asteroid threat? Here we go. In 1974, shortly before dying, von Braun told Dr. Carol Rawson the Pentagon would use an alien threat as the last ploy in a 5-step program. 1, communist threat. 2, terror threat. 3, rogue nations. 4, asteroids. 5, alien threat. Now, I don't think asteroids are viable because you can't predict them. But you know what you can predict? Space junk, the result of space wars. So if we have space wars, then you would have you'd have the equivalent of asteroids. We're just talking about basically an attack from above that equally targets anybody anywhere in the world. And this doesn't sound far-fetched anymore because a piece of space junk that was dropped on 3/11/2021 hit a house in Florida, and now NASA is being sued for $80,000. So they've already made this real. Space junk is a hyperstition. Now it exists. And if you can fake it, you can probably get paid. And how can they say it's not real? That's my question. You know, I'm going to have a big chunk of petrified wood fall through my roof. And I'm going to say, yeah, a moon rock fell off the moon and it fell through my roof. You want to be anti-science? You're going to be a flat earther and tell me this isn't a moon rock? How dare you? Like, you can just assume the high ground on these things. I have a chart on the screen here. It's a graphic. It says World Stage Closed System. Big blue box, Normieville. Inside of this big blue box, inside of the closed system, is Woketown and Trutherville. Trutherville is where we will most likely find those who are deprogrammable. Woketown, nope, lost cause. Normieville, who cares, not worth the time. They're happy. They're blissful. Blissfully ignorant and woefully apathetic. Because they literally believe in all the crazy stuff and they don't care. We know it's fake, so we don't care. Big difference. But there's only 3 types of people in the world. Those who are programmed inside the box, normies, truthers, wokers. Then there are the programmers, and we don't know who they are. We can identify some of them. And then there are the deprogrammed. There are no unprogrammed. Everybody's programmed. You don't just go off the grid. You have to deprogram first to even make that claim. You have to remove their frame of reference from being yours because they have deposed you as the arbiter of what you believe from the time that you were born. But the deprogrammed would be the non believers, the media skeptics, and auto hoaxers. Auto hoaxers for sure. Many media skeptics still fall prey to some bits of misconceptions, but we're in the process of fine tuning, and I think we'll clarify things as we go. Smarty Pants says, Tim, get StreamYard. Someone recommended it. I may check it out. Okay, continuing here. Going through my last few notes before we have to go. Again, thanks again to the caller. I brought this up. This is a post on Twitter. We'll talk about this more some more tomorrow probably, but it's this concept called dis in folklore. Dis in folklore. And what he says here, this is no coincidence. This is from my study of speech patterns in the Trump Brexit propaganda and in eastern Ukraine, where I worked on the correspondences between reality and disinformation operations. Trump is consciously and deliberately a cartoon, a pantomime villain. It goes on to explain here how we invest in our myths, our childlike faith, and they're tearing apart the fabric of reality by superimposing mythology and stories, narratives over facts. And that's a major component of this. They never let facts get in the way of good narrative, good stories. And so for example, the Q story, it's all based on a savior. It's based on a new Christ. It's a new religion templated off of Christianity, some variants of New Age, and it offers an answer to all the conspiracy theories and provides a savior figure. It caters to the religious impulse. And there's no difference at this point between the political ideology and a religion. And if you expand religion or your definition of religion to include, just in general, a world view filter, the thing that gets everyone on the same sheet. It could be it could be a channel doctrine, a holy book, or a TV network. Same thing. Okay, we'll talk about that and more. We have so much more to cover. We were talking about space junk as being the next big thing. And again, they just invented it, and now it's real. At 6:24, we were expecting the astronauts to come down from the Boeing. They have not. They've had issues with leaks. Reoccurring theme here with leaks. And also this. Just key words here to note. We're listening. They're listening to NASA doing their spacewalk, and it says Dominic was heard on the coverage through the hatch, looking into the airlock, saying, "Looking into the airlock, it looked like a snowstorm." What does that mean? It looked like a snowstorm. A couple of other things here. This is pointed out by Violet. The ISS orbits at 420 kilometers. 42 is consistently associated with space, and specifically with Elon Musk. Elon Musk is obsessed with the number 42, which comes out of Douglas Adams's book, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. The supercomputer at the center of the universe is asked what the meaning of life is, and the number 42 is the meaning of life, supposedly. Well, anyway, there are other interpretations for it, but interestingly enough, it turns out
42%.
if you have a Cybertruck and you leave it charging all night, 12 hours, you will get 42% on your charge.
Of emergency because it's charging. I have a whopping 42% battery, which means I can go 133 miles anywhere I want to go.
Anyway, 42% battery charge over the night. He's a little miffed about it. But I'm like, this is just another example of the number 42 being conspicuously associated with one of Elon Musk's things. The Cybertruck came out of Blade Runner, by the way. Blade Runner was set in Los Angeles, 2019, and that's where you saw the original Cybertruck, and 2019 is when the Cybertruck emerged, and people compared the two. Propaganda, a book written by Edward Bernays, 1928, incorporated literature from social science, psychological manipulation, into an examination of techniques of public communication. And this followed his book, Crystallizing Public Opinion. But propaganda explores the psychology behind manipulating masses and the ability to use symbolic action to influence politics. This is incredible. He's the father of public relations. I'm going to find this book, and you know what I should do is I should just send out the PDF. I'll send out the PDF, and then we can I'll read it myself. I read it a while ago. And let's take a quick look here at this headline. Edward Bernays and Netflix. We are governed, our minds are molded, our tastes are formed, our ideas suggested by men we've never heard of. Which is one of my points, the meta-scriptors. We can name some, but ultimately we don't know. And this is not a surprise at all. Edward Bernays is the father of public relations, the father of PR stunts. And what's the difference between a PSYOP and a PR stunt? Nothing. They use PR stunts to create hyperstitions, contemporary myths, which is what we're all examining right now. And we're not believing in the myths of the state or any of its God constructs. So where does that leave us? Well, they label us heretics, and they attempt to exile us. We're considered to be apostates. We're apostates, meaning we used to believe, and now we no longer do. And that makes us a threat to believers who might want to know, why don't you believe anymore? Maybe these guys have a point, which is why they want to exile us. We are digital exiles because we are apostates, and we represent a threat to the cognitive dissonance that they maintain. And they use this, I believe, because they believe it's a benevolent way of maintaining the peace. You know, war is peace and all that. So yeah, the mind war is there to maintain peace or stasis. Anyway, this has been great. Thanks to all the commenters, and thanks to the caller. We'll be back tomorrow, if not the same time, much earlier. This is Space's Fake AF.
Have you ever
Chief
looked
Crow.
away from Earth into the black void?
Because you can see the stars.
Oh yeah.
You know, and
We were never able to see stars from the lunar surface or on the daylight side of the moon.
It's not a black void. I mean, it's black, but there's all kinds of polka dots.